The cold that morning wasn't just the weather. It was the kind of cold that seeps into your bones and refuses to leave. I stood at the edge of the grave as they lowered my husband, George Thorne, into the ground. 50 years of marriage disappearing beneath grey Georgia soil. My hands trembled inside my black gloves, not from age, but from shock. When you lose the person who anchored your life, the world tilts. You expect someone to steady you. I turned to my daughter, Victoria. I was looking for her eyes. I found her phone. She and her husband, Maxwell, stood a few feet away, whispering, scrolling, nodding at screens as if nothing irreversible was happening behind them. I told myself not to judge. People grieve differently. That's what good mothers do. We excuse first, ask later. But when the service ended and the last words faded into the air, I realized something was wrong. "Mom," Victoria said, already stepping backward. "We need to head out. Traffic back to Atlanta will be brutal. The kids have an interview tomorrow. You'll be okay getting home, right?" She didn't wait for my answer. I stood there, beside fresh dirt and wilting flowers, watching their silver Porsche pull away. No hug. No offer of a ride. No question about the car service I'd booked. Just disappearing taillights. If this feels uncomfortable to hear, pause for a second. Subscribe now, because situations like this don't announce themselves early. I was left alone with my husband's grave and the sound of wind cutting through the cemetery. That's when the truth landed. Grief doesn't hurt the most when you're alone. It hurts when you realize you've been left alone on purpose. When I finally made it home hours later, the house felt hollow. I sat in the dark, still in my funeral clothes, listening to the quiet George used to fill. I didn't cry. I stared at the wall and waited for my phone to buzz. Surely my daughter would check on me. Surely. It did buzz. But not with concern. It was a text. Victoria wrote that she needed to set boundaries. She said I shouldn't expect her to take care of me in old age. She mentioned her life, her family, her career. She suggested I sell my home and find a senior community before I became a burden. A burden. That word stayed with me. If you're watching this thinking, my family would never do that, subscribe anyway, because most people thought the same thing. I didn't respond. I didn't call her. I didn't beg. Something quiet happened instead. A shift. The kind that doesn't look dramatic from the outside but changes everything inside. I looked at George's photo on the mantle and realized this wasn't just about abandonment. It was about expectation. They expected me to shrink, to liquidate, to fade, to fund their future quietly and gratefully. That text didn't break me. It clarified me. And right there, in a silent house still smelling like funeral flowers, I made a decision. If my own child didn't want the responsibility of me, then she certainly wouldn't have the privilege of benefiting from what I'd built. Like this story now, because you may need it sooner than you think. Share it with someone who assumes loyalty is guaranteed. What happened next wasn't loud. It wasn't rushed. But it was deliberate. And it started with a single phone call that my daughter never saw coming. Stay with me. When I think back on my marriage to George, what I remember most isn't romance. It's effort. Quiet, steady effort that doesn't photograph well but keeps a life standing. George and I married young. We didn't come from money, and nobody handed us anything. He worked long days at the mill. I worked wherever I could, clerical jobs, bookkeeping, later managing the office at a small supply company. Every dollar had a purpose. Groceries, school shoes, savings, then back to groceries again. When Victoria was born, everything else moved to second place. George took overtime shifts he didn't want. I skipped vacations I would have loved. I wore the same coats until the elbows thinned. Not because anyone forced us, but because that's what parents do when they believe sacrifice builds character. I told myself that watching us work hard would teach her gratitude. I was wrong. Victoria never lacked anything essential. She had piano lessons, summer camps, later a nice college apartment. We helped where we could because we thought support meant love. What I didn't see then was how easily support turns into expectation when it's never questioned. She learned early that discomfort wasn't permanent. If something felt heavy, her father and I lifted it. If something felt boring, we paid to replace it. I called it helping. Looking back, it was training. She grew into confidence quickly. People admired her for it. Teachers said she was assertive. Friends said she knew what she deserved. I repeated those words proudly, never stopping to ask who was paying for that confidence. When she married Maxwell, I noticed the shift, but I explained it away. He liked expensive things. She started liking them too. Suddenly, practical choices were beneath her interest. George raised an eyebrow once and said, "That lifestyle needs feeding." I laughed and told him he worried too much. At holidays, Victoria arrived late and left early. Her gifts became generic, store-bought at the last minute. Conversations drifted toward her needs, her schedule, her stress. When I talked about my health or George's, she nodded while checking her phone. I told myself that was modern life. I told myself I was being old-fashioned. At the funeral, those memories lined up all at once. The phones at the graveside. The rush to leave. The way she spoke to me like a calendar conflict instead of a grieving mother. That wasn't a sudden failure. It was a pattern finally exposed. I replayed moments I'd ignored. The time she complained about visiting us because the drive was inconvenient. The way she joked about our house being too big for just two old people. The casual comments about what she'd do once everything was settled. None of it felt cruel at the time. That's the danger. Disregard rarely announces itself. It arrives wrapped in reason. Have you ever defended someone by saying, "They didn't mean it like that," only to realize later they meant it exactly that way? The funeral wasn't when my daughter changed. It was when I stopped protecting her image in my mind. I finally admitted something painful. I had raised her in comfort and mistook that comfort for values. I believed stability created kindness automatically. But kindness, I learned too late, has to be practiced. It doesn't grow just because money is available. That realization didn't come with tears. It came with clarity. The speed of my thoughts changed after that. Slow grief turned into sharp focus. I wasn't angry yet. I was alert. And alert people notice details they used to excuse. Victoria hadn't abandoned me at the cemetery. She had been preparing for that moment for years. She just didn't expect me to understand it so clearly. If this feels familiar, pause here. Ask yourself who you're excusing right now. Because love without limits teaches people that limits don't exist. After the funeral, I didn't call Victoria. I didn't text her back. I let the silence stretch like a warning flag across the house. To her, I was the grieving widow, small and fragile, the picture of someone ready to vanish. Perfectly harmless. I picked up the phone and dialed Bennett Vance, our family attorney of decades. His voice was steady, familiar. "Evelyn, how are you holding up?" I let a pause hang before speaking. "Bennett, I need more than sympathy. I need facts. I need eyes where mine can't reach." He understood immediately. We had worked together through wills, investments, and property transfers for years. What I was about to ask wasn't standard procedure. "I want a private investigator," I said. "Discreet, detailed, and I want all of it documented." He didn't question me. That's why I trusted him. Over the next week, I played the part of the widow flawlessly. I answered calls with a quiet voice, accepted condolence visits, nodded at neighbors, and smiled faintly when acquaintances murmured, "She's strong." At night, I reviewed spreadsheets, bank statements, and notes I'd collected over decades. My home became a quiet command center, the kind that breeds patience and calculation. Meanwhile, the private investigator, a meticulous woman named Clara, began digging into Victoria and Maxwell's life in Atlanta. I didn't ask for sensationalism. I asked for accuracy, for the truth of what they were counting on without ever acknowledging my existence. 10 days later, Bennett delivered the report. I had my brandy in hand, but I didn't need it. My hands weren't shaking from grief anymore. They were steady with awareness. Clara had uncovered a world of smoke and mirrors. Maxwell's investment firm, a boutique image of success, was essentially a facade. Client accounts were leveraged beyond the numbers. Loans stacked like cards ready to collapse. Victoria, who flaunted independence and luxury, hadn't had a regular paycheck in years. She billed the company $50,000 consulting fees for work that didn't exist. All of this to maintain appearances. The private school tuition, the country club, the Porsche. It wasn't just negligence or poor judgment. It was a careful balancing act, designed to make them appear affluent while their accounts teetered on collapse. Then came the personal revelations. Clara's report included photographs, social media cross-references, and internal documents. Maxwell's mistress, a 24-year-old marketing assistant, had already been shown potential condos they planned to buy using what they assumed would be my inheritance. Victoria knew. They both knew. And in their minds, I was already an obstacle they would overcome. I stared at the pages, drinking in the betrayal like a seasoned strategist. Each photograph of Victoria smiling in silk gowns, Maxwell laughing at galas that had long exceeded their means, added clarity. Not rage, clarity. I put the report down and spoke to Bennett. I want every recommendation from Clara implemented quietly. And I want you to advise me on secure accounts, trusts, and any legal barriers they might try to exploit. His nod was almost imperceptible. Understood, Evelyn. You're thinking far ahead. I smiled, almost warmly. I'm not thinking ahead. I'm thinking now. About lessons they won't forget. The private investigator's work revealed more than money problems. There were patterns, who Victoria called, what she hid, how she presented herself. She always assumed she was untouchable, shielded by the illusion that she could predict the future. I knew better. People who live behind illusions often stumble the hardest when reality arrives. By the end of the month, I had a clear picture of their financial overreach. Bridge loans, high-interest credit lines, potential legal loopholes to contest estates. Each discovery was another piece in the map I was drawing for the inevitable confrontation. I didn't act immediately. Acting too soon would be a mistake. Instead, I continued the act of the quiet, obedient widow. I maintained composure, attended social visits, and spoke gently when Victoria checked in. Every nod and smile reinforced their false sense of security. In their minds, the battle had been won before it began. But behind that calm exterior, I was not idle. I arranged secure accounts, reviewed property deeds, and set up preliminary trust structures that would allow me to control the flow of assets. Each move was precise, a step in a sequence they would never anticipate. It's surprising how quickly perception becomes reality. Victoria believed she was steering the course. She was not. One evening, I poured a small glass of brandy and read the report again. Each page told a story of ambition, greed, and misplaced confidence. And I realized something essential. I wasn't angry. I was relieved. The truth had a shape I could work with. If I had only known this before, I could have avoided the entire charade of pleading and hoping. The next morning, I drafted a carefully worded text to Victoria. I didn't mention debt or the mistress. I didn't hint at the investigation. I simply invited her and Maxwell to the house under the pretense of sorting through the estate before the house sale. It was bait, nothing more. And they bit immediately. I leaned back, letting the quiet settle around me, and thought to the viewers. If your loved ones can plan without your knowledge, how prepared are you? How much of your life is built on assumptions about loyalty, not facts? Subscribe now so you're never caught unprepared like this. Share it with someone who still believes kindness alone protects them. Like it, and take the first step toward awareness. Because once you see the strategy of betrayal laid bare, you realize it can be anywhere, even in a family that swore it loved you. And that realization is priceless, but dangerous if ignored. I spent the next few weeks moving quietly, like a shadow with purpose. Each morning, I went through the house as if I were only tidying, dusting shelves, arranging furniture, while in reality, I was orchestrating the next phase of my plan. George's belongings, long symbols of our life together, became my tools of leverage. I began liquidating smaller assets first. The vintage tool collection, the extra plot of land by the lake, certain blue chip stocks, things Victoria had never noticed, never valued. Each sale moved funds into an offshore trust, carefully constructed with Bennett's guidance. Even Maxwell couldn't touch it. Even Victoria, if she realized it, would be powerless. I called it my freedom fund, though it was far more than that. It was my insurance, my statement, my lesson in independence. And I enjoyed every moment of the quiet control. At night, I planned the foundation. I thought of others in my position, older people abandoned by their families, left at hospitals, funeral homes, or nursing facilities with nobody to notice. I named it the George Thorne Memorial Fund. Its mission was precise: transportation and emergency support for elderly people left alone when the world expected them to disappear. I smiled at the thought. Victoria and Maxwell had assumed I was weak, that I would fade, that their bridge loans, their lavish spending, and their mistress were just clever moves against a passive target. They didn't know I had already beaten them to the first move. Then came the message I had been waiting for. It was almost too easy. I sent Victoria a short text, worded to pique her curiosity and greed without revealing anything. Dearest Victoria, you're right. I've decided to sell the house and downsize. I'd love for you and Maxwell to come over this weekend to help me sort through things before the movers arrive. There's also something important to discuss regarding the estate. Please confirm. Within minutes, the reply came. Of course, Mom. We'll be there. Can't wait to help. We'll be on time. Perfect. Just as I expected. I didn't rush. I didn't reveal. I let them imagine control. Their minds would fill in the blanks with assumptions about the inheritance, the house, and the downgrading of my life. The trap was set, and they didn't even know it. For 3 days, I continued my routine. I greeted neighbors politely, kept up appearances, and went about errands as if nothing had changed. Victoria called twice, leaving cheerful messages that I responded to with vague, positive tones. She believed I was still a widow ready to follow her instructions. Meanwhile, the trust and foundation preparations moved forward without interruption. Offshore accounts were fully operational, documents signed, and the initial transfers made. Everything was airtight. My estate attorney, Bennett, checked in discreetly, his reports confirming that no financial door remained open to them. Each morning, I imagined their reactions when reality hit. The idea made my chest warm, though not with malice, rather with satisfaction that justice, quiet and precise, could taste this sweet. Have you ever known someone assumed your weakness was their gain? It's a dangerous feeling, isn't it? That anticipation is what sharpens your mind and your actions. I set the table for the upcoming weekend in my dining room. Not a single detail was accidental. George's favorite roast beef was prepared, mashed potatoes with perfect texture, the fine china laid carefully. I wanted them to feel comfort, to believe they were entering a home ready for them to take command. They needed to be comfortable so their guard would drop completely. The weekend approached, and I thought about the psychology at play. People rarely see what they want to see until it's too late. Victoria and Maxwell were rehearsing their roles in a story I had already written. They were the villains in their own minds and the heroes in mine. On Friday evening, I reviewed the estate documents one last time. Everything was ready. The house was technically on the market, the trust fully established, the foundation active. Bennett had ensured that no loophole existed. I was in complete control. By Saturday morning, I dressed in my favorite silk robe and walked through the house, noting details they would likely comment on. The driveway looked polished, the lawn neatly trimmed. The house smelled faintly of lavender and roast beef. Every sensory cue was designed to lull them into a false sense of normalcy, to create that calm before the storm. I poured myself a cup of tea and considered the next move. The first contact would be casual, warm, even affectionate. That was crucial. It would make the eventual revelation hit with maximum impact, psychologically. Then I allowed myself a small smile, knowing that by this evening, everything would begin. They would walk into a room they thought they understood, only to discover that the rules had changed. That the game they assumed they were winning had ended before it began. And if you're watching this thinking, I could never see betrayal coming, pause for a moment. Think about the people you trust without evidence. Because if you ignore warning signs, it's possible someone is already counting on your absence. Stay with me. If this feels dangerous, you're paying attention. Subscribe, so you never underestimate someone's ability to plan quietly. Like this video and share it with anyone who believes loyalty is guaranteed. Awareness is the only protection, and I am about to show exactly how to claim it. Saturday morning arrived with perfect timing. I stood by the window in my silk robe, sipping tea, listening to the sound of the Porsche pulling into the driveway. Victoria and Maxwell stepped out, polished and confident, as if the world still belonged to them. Their smiles were rehearsed, their grief carefully measured. "Oh, Mom," Victoria said, approaching with a sweet coo. "I'm so glad you're being sensible. Downsizing is such a good idea. We brought a few brochures for a lovely assisted living village near the city. Very high-end." Maxwell adjusted his gold watch and nodded. "We've spoken to a realtor friend. He can get the place on the market by Monday. It'll save you the stress, Evelyn. Just sign a few papers for temporary management." I gestured them inside with a calm smile. "How thoughtful of you both. Please, make yourselves comfortable. Dinner will be ready shortly." They didn't notice my eyes scanning them, memorizing their mannerisms, the nervous tension hidden behind their polished exteriors. We sat in the dining room, and I had prepared everything to perfection. Roast beef, mashed potatoes, and George's favorite vegetables. The silverware gleamed, the china impeccable. I wanted comfort. I wanted familiarity. I wanted them to feel completely in control, right before it slipped through their fingers. Victoria's eyes flicked to a folder I had placed deliberately on the table. "What's this?" she asked, with an excitement that betrayed greed more than curiosity. I didn't answer immediately. I poured tea, maintaining calm, letting the anticipation build. "I wanted to show you what I've been doing with your father's personal accounts," I said softly. "I know how much you value financial transparency." Victoria's manicured hands reached for the folder. I let her hover. Let her imagine all she wanted. Let her assume control. Then, I spoke. "I took your advice about not being a burden. I realized if I'm to take care of myself for the next 20 years, I needed to manage my assets, not let them sit idle." Maxwell's face tightened. "You sold the lake property." "Yes," I said, with the ease of someone recounting the weather. "And several other investments. The funds have been placed into a trust, fully protected. And the remaining assets? Allocated to the George Thorne Memorial Fund. It provides transportation and support for older people abandoned by family." Victoria's fork clattered against the plate. "Mom, what are you talking about? The inheritance? What about our plans?" I leaned back, smiling faintly. "Inheritance? You told me you had your own life, your own family, your own career. I figured you wouldn't want the burden of dusty old money. So, I relieved you of that entirely." Maxwell's face turned red. "You can't be serious. We have obligations. Expenses. A bridge loan." I tilted my head, voice steady, cold steel under calm. "I know about the shell company, the mistress's condo, the loans against my roof. I know everything. I acted in advance to protect myself, and you from yourselves." Victoria gasped, hand to throat. You spied on us." "I protected myself," I replied. "Just as you suggested. I followed your guidance about boundaries. You told me not to expect care. So I ensured I wouldn't need it, and neither would you." The room was silent except for the faint ticking of the clock. I watched them, caught between fury and disbelief. Their carefully rehearsed confidence had crumbled into panic. "You can't do this," Maxwell shouted. "We could contest this legally." I stood, gesturing toward the door. "The house is sold. The keys go to a young family with children. You have 1 hour to take whatever memories you want from the attic. After that, the locks are changed." They stormed out, screaming and threatening. I didn't follow. I didn't argue. I simply returned to my chair, finishing tea as if nothing had occurred. That night, I slept soundly. For the first time in weeks, the house felt alive with possibility rather than grief. I felt free. I felt victorious. The next morning, at 8 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. Victoria, frantic, hair disheveled, makeup smudged, clutched a thick envelope. "Mom, stop this. Maxwell's firm had a margin call this morning. Without proof of assets, they'll freeze everything. We'll lose the house. The kids." I leaned against the doorframe, calm, in my silk robe. "Victoria, yesterday you were worried about me being a burden. Today, you are asking me to carry yours. My answer hasn't changed since your text." "It was just a text. I didn't mean it." "Words have consequences," I said. "You told me not to expect care. I acted. And I no longer fund your lifestyle either." Bennett Vance entered quietly, briefcase in hand. "Ah, Victoria. Good timing. Here to witness your mother's final signature on the living trust." Victoria's face drained of color. "What did you do, Mom?" "I left each grandchild a modest educational trust, untouchable by you," I explained. "The rest goes to the George Thorne Memorial Fund. And since you're fond of setting boundaries, I added a clause. Contest this will, and the children's trusts are forfeited to the IRS." Maxwell sprinted up the curb, but it was too late. I took the pen from Bennett, signed the documents, and handed it back. "There," I said, brushing a loose strand of hair behind my ear. "I have a brunch date with the garden club. Since I am no longer a burden, I have time and money to live freely." I closed the door on their yelling, turned the deadbolt, and walked into my sunny kitchen. The house no longer felt like a tomb. It felt like a fresh start. For those watching, think carefully. If you were in my shoes, would this have been justified or too far? Comment below. The morning arrived with an urgent knock that rattled the serenity of my new condo. I had just finished arranging the fresh flowers on the kitchen counter, savoring the quiet and the light filtering through the large windows. Then came the rhythmic pounding at the door, frantic, insistent. I checked the security camera. It was Victoria. Her hair was a mess, her makeup streaked, eyes wide with panic. She clutched a thick envelope as if it were a lifeline. I opened the door just wide enough to see her desperation. "Mom, you have to stop this," she shouted. "Maxwell's firm had a margin call this morning. If we don't provide proof of future assets by noon, they'll freeze everything. We'll lose the house. The kids, they'll be kicked out of school. You can't do this to your own flesh and blood." I leaned against the doorframe, calm, in my favorite silk robe, as if nothing could rattle me. "Victoria," I said evenly, "yesterday, you were worried about me being a burden. Today, it seems you want me to carry yours. My answer hasn't changed since your text." She shook her head violently, voice cracking. "It was just a text. I didn't mean it. I was stressed." I studied her face. There was no malice left, only raw panic and helplessness. "Words have consequences, Victoria," I said, voice steady as a heartbeat. "You told me not to expect care, so I ensured I would never need you. And in doing so, I realized I don't need to fund your lifestyle either." Bennett Vance appeared quietly in the foyer, briefcase in hand, his presence calm but authoritative. "Ah, Victoria. Perfect timing. I was just here to witness your mother's final signature on the restructured living trust." Victoria froze. Her gaze fell to the papers in Bennett's hand, as if they were a final judgment. "What did you do, Mom? What have you done?" I smiled softly, letting the weight of my calmness land. "Each of my grandchildren has been provided for with modest educational trusts, untouchable by you. The rest of George's estate, and the assets I accumulated over my life, have been placed into the George Thorne Memorial Fund." I allowed a slight pause for effect. "And since you are so fond of setting boundaries, I included a clause. Any attempt by you or Maxwell to contest this trust will immediately forfeit the children's inheritance to the IRS as a voluntary contribution." Maxwell's car had pulled up, and he dashed toward the condo, but it was too late. I took the pen from Bennett, signing the final page with a flourish. "There," I said, placing the pen down. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a brunch date with some ladies from the garden club. We're discussing a cruise to the Mediterranean. Since I won't be a burden, I have time and money to live as I choose." Victoria and Maxwell shouted, screamed, and threatened legal action, but I simply closed the door. I locked it, turned the deadbolt, and walked into my sunlit kitchen. The condo smelled of coffee and fresh flowers, not grief or loss. For the first time since George passed, the air felt alive. I checked my phone one last time. I blocked Victoria's number, deleted the text that started it all, and smiled at the calm. Being a burden is a choice. I had chosen freedom. I had chosen clarity. I had chosen dignity. I had chosen to live on my terms. To everyone watching, think about this. Have you ever trusted someone blindly, believing they would care when the time came? How often do we assume loyalty will last? This story is a reminder that preparation and awareness are your best allies. We share these stories so it doesn't happen to you, so that you can recognize subtle warning signs, so you can plan, so you can protect yourself before it's too late. And here's a simple truth. You cannot always control the actions of others, but you can control your response, your planning, and your boundaries. Don't wait for a text like Victoria's to force you into clarity. If you're watching this now and feeling the weight of caution, subscribe to this channel. Like this video. Share it. Protect yourself, your loved ones, and those you care about. Because trust, without preparation, can be your greatest vulnerability. Every family has secrets. Every household has unspoken assumptions. And every day, people are blindsided by betrayal in ways they never imagined. Don't be one of them. Subscribe now, before it's too late. Stay informed. Stay prepared. Stay aware. These are not just stories. They are lessons. And the cost of ignoring them is too high.